Here's the truth no one tells you. Practicing for hours could be ruining your progress. That's right, your brain doesn't need endless repetition, and it needs smart, focused practice. Today we're breaking down how to rewire your brain's superhighway for fluency in half the time.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something absolutely central for, well, anyone learning a language. How do we actually practice effectively? I mean, we all know practice is important, but...
But how we do it makes all the difference, right? It's not just about clocking hours.
Exactly. So let's look under the hood a bit. What's going on in the brain when we practice language skills?
Yeah, okay. So think about learning any skill, maybe like playing guitar or something. You're building connections.
Right.
For language, you're wiring your brain to handle new sounds, new grammar, new ways of putting thoughts together.
Okay, so what parts are involved? Our sources mention gray matter. That's for processing, yeah.
That's right. The gray matter does the heavy lifting, the thinking part. Then signals have to travel.
Down nerve fibers, axons, I think they're called, in the white matter.
Precisely. The white matter contains these axons, the wiring, and critically, these axons are coated in something called myelin.
Ah, myelin. That sounds important.
It really is. It's a fatty substance, kind of like insulation on an electrical wire. Okay. And here's the fascinating part. Practice seems to actually thicken this myelin layer around the specific axons you're using for that skill.
So wait, the more I practice, say, rolling my R's in Spanish.
The more myelin builds up around those specific neural pathways involved in producing that sound.
Which makes the signal travel faster, more efficiently.
Exactly. It becomes smoother, quicker, more automatic. It's like paving a bumpy dirt track into a superhighway for that specific piece of information or skill.
A superhighway in the brain. I like that. So this whole idea of muscle memory in language,
Yeah.
it's not quite right, is it? It's more like neural pathway memory.
That's a much better way to put it. It's about optimizing those brain connections, which leads us straight back to the idea that how you practice really matters. Just mindlessly repeating isn't enough to build that superhighway effectively.
Right. We need smart practice.
Yeah.
So what's the mission here? What are the key things for effective language practice?
Well, let's dive into that. The first big one, and maybe the most obvious but hardest, is focused attention.
Ah, focus. The enemy of the modern world.
Huh. Pretty much. It's so easy to get sidetracked. There was this study, looking at students.
Oh, yeah. What did it find?
Well, it found they could only stay truly focused for about 6 minutes on average before getting distracted. Laptops, phones, social media, the usual suspects.
6 minutes. Wow. Okay, so that's a major hurdle for building that myelin, I guess, if your attention is split.
Absolutely. Your brain needs that dedicated focus to properly encode what you're learning and start reinforcing those pathways. If you're half watching TV while doing flashcards, it's just not as effective.
Makes sense. So practical tips: turn off notifications, find a quiet spot, the basics.
Basics, but they're crucial. Create an environment where you can actually concentrate for a decent chunk of time. Even short bursts of real focus are better than long periods of distraction.
Okay, focus. Got it. What's next?
All right, the next point is about how you start learning a new element, like maybe pronunciation or a tricky grammar point. It's about speed.
Speed. As in, go fast.
No, actually the opposite, at least initially. You need to start slowly. See, coordination, whether it's getting your mouth muscles right for a sound or applying a grammar rule, is built through repetition. But here's the catch. Your brain reinforces whatever you repeat, whether it's right or wrong.
So if I rush and keep making the same pronunciation mistake.
You're actually strengthening the pathway for the wrong pronunciation. You're paving a highway to the wrong destination.
Ouch. Okay, so slow down. Focus on getting it right, even if it feels awkward or tedious at first.
Exactly. Accuracy first. Nail the pronunciation slowly, build the sentence structure correctly, then gradually increase the speed as it becomes more comfortable and accurate. Build the right habits from the get-go.
Slow is smooth and smooth becomes fast.
Got it.
Yeah. What else?
Frequent repetitions, but with breaks. This one's interesting. Elite performers, musicians, athletes, you name it, they often practice for hours a day, yes, but not usually in one huge block.
They break it up.
Yeah, often into multiple, shorter, really intense sessions with breaks in between.
Why is that better than just, grinding it out for 3 hours straight? Seems less efficient on the surface.
It seems counterintuitive, maybe, but the brain appears to consolidate learning better during those breaks. Shorter, focused bursts prevent mental fatigue and allow your brain time to, process and solidify what you've just practiced.
So for language learning,
Yeah.
instead of a marathon 3-hour study session on Saturday.
Maybe try 3 focused 45-minute sessions spread through the day, or even across a couple of days, with real breaks in between. Give your brain breathing room, space repetition, but on a micro level within your practice time, too.
Okay, focus, start slow, short bursts with breaks. Anything else?
One more, and this one is pretty cool, I think. Mental practice.
Mental practice, like just thinking about it. Does that actually work?
It sounds a bit out there, but there's evidence for it. There was this famous study with basketball players shooting free throws.
Okay.
They split them into groups. One group physically practiced free throws, another did nothing, and a third group just mentally visualized themselves making perfect free throws.
And don't tell me the visualization group got better.
Well, for the intermediate and experienced players, the mental practice group improved almost as much as the group that did actual physical practice. The beginners didn't benefit as much, but for those with some foundation.
Wow. Okay, that's genuinely surprising. How does that apply to language learning then? Am I just picturing myself speaking fluent French?
Sort of. You could say, mentally rehearse a conversation you might have. Imagine ordering coffee, asking for directions, using specific vocabulary or grammar points you've learned.
So run through scenarios in my head.
Exactly. Or mentally review vocabulary lists. Think about how you'd use those words in different sentences. Mentally conjugate verbs while you're waiting for the bus. It reinforces the neural pathways without you even needing to speak or write.
That's actually a really powerful tool, especially when you don't have a speaking partner handy. You can still be practicing.
You absolutely can. It helps solidify what you've already learned physically or through study.
Okay, so let's recap the big ideas for making practice truly effective. We need focused attention, minimize those distractions.
Start slow, prioritize accuracy before speed to build the right habits.
Right. Practice in shorter, focused bursts with breaks in between rather than marathon sessions.
Yeah, give the brain time to consolidate.
And finally, leverage the power of mental rehearsal to reinforce learning, even when you're not actively speaking or writing.
That's the core of it. It's about being strategic and mindful about how you engage with the language.
It really shifts the perspective from just put in the time to make the time count by working with how your brain learns best, building that superhighway deliberately.
Precisely. It's about quality, not just quantity.
So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is, how can you tweak your current routine? Where can you inject more focus, slow down for accuracy, break up sessions, or add some mental practice to really optimize your language learning journey?
Yeah, how can you start building your own language superhighway, one effective practice session at a time?